tonight's joint meeting of the Albany County Legislature's Law Committee and Public Safety Committee. My name is Jeffrey Kuhn. I'm the chair of the Law Committee of the Legislature. I'm here with Susan Petto, who is the vice chair of the Public Safety Committee. As a first item of business, why don't we take attendance?
All right, starting with the Law Committee, Mr. Kuhn.
Here.
He's not here, Mr. Feeney.
Here.
Marulia.
Here.
McLaughlin. Plotski.
Here.
Picard. Bergdorf.
Here.
Curley. Public Safety Committee, Mr. Penso's not here. Ms. Petto.
Here.
Besta.
Here.
Miles not here. Mr. Evaporo.
Here.
Mr. Heath here. Mr. Lane. Collins. And Lockhart.
Here.
Great, thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. The legislature called tonight's special joint session of the Law and Public Safety Committees in response to the tragic events in the city of Albany on the 4th of July and the early hours of July 5th. The annual Independence Day festivities at the Empire State Plaza were marred by violence as 10 different people were shot in 3 different incidents, and a building only a few blocks from the plaza burned to the ground after being set ablaze by a flare gun. Some of those who were shot sustained extremely serious, life-changing injuries. Public safety officials were injured in the chaos, and thousands of people, including families with young children, were swept up in a terrifying scene on what should have been a happy and celebratory occasion. Like many people in and out of government, I was saddened, angered, and frankly embarrassed by what happened in our community on July 4th and 5th. We are all entitled to safety and security, whether on the 4th of July or on any other day of the year. Several people have been arrested and charged in connection with the events, and the criminal justice process will run its course. However, for many people, these recent events are unfortunately consistent with a disturbing impression that crime, and particularly violent crime, is increasing in our community, especially among young people. Members of our community rightfully expect their government officials to be responsive to these concerns and to work cooperatively, transparently, and productively to 1, honestly identify the underlying problems, 2, explain what the government has done and is doing to address these problems, and 3, use all the means at their disposal to formulate and implement solutions. That is why we are here tonight. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce our panel that's going to be addressing us tonight. First, from the County Executives team, Deputy County Executive Mike McLaughlin, Cameron Sagan, the Director of Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs. From the District Attorney's Office, Albany County District Attorney Lee Kinlan, and Joe Maney, his Chief of Staff. From the
He's my chief assistant district.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
From the Sheriff's Office, Albany County Sheriff Craig Apple, and I think Chief Deputy Christopher Kobeck, is he?
I'm a loner.
Okay. That's fine. From the Probation Department, Bill Connors, Lori Hagerty, and Colleen Breslin. Is that all correct?
Lori's not here tonight, just
Okay.
myself and
Thanks. And then from Department for Children, Youth, and Families, Moira Manning and Nicole Ward. Are you both here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So everyone has an agenda, should have an agenda in front of them. Here's the way I'd like to handle tonight's meeting. We're going to have presentations from all the governmental entities that I just mentioned. We'd like to let each of those, all of those presentations be made, and we're going to hold all our questions and comments as legislators until all those presentations are made, and then everyone will be afforded an opportunity to make any sort of comment or ask any question that they'd like to do. But I think it makes the most sense to have all the presentations be made, and then we can make our questions and comments thereafter. So with that, I believe you, Mr. McLaughlin, you're going to go first?
Yes, sir.
All right, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman said, I think there's a lot of information. We're going to cover a lot of information tonight, and that'll answer a lot of questions. And of course, at the end, please, we'll be open to any questions you may have. First and foremost, thank you to everyone here. Thank you to the chairwoman for the request for this meeting and the openness to this open discussion, and to the deputy chairwoman who's been part of these conversations as well as the staff in the legislative offices. Thank you to the chair of the committees, the sheriff and the DA for immediately engaging in the conversation after the events that have been mentioned on the 4th of July. Can't forget mentioning staff in our office. Cam Sagan's name has already been mentioned, but also Stephanie Thomas in our office, and Sia Gugas, who is new to the county executive's office, but not new to county government and is incredibly experienced in the county attorney's office, for their assistance in what was a very packed week to get all this information together in conjunction with a lot of work from our departments to present to you here today. Goal here today is to, in many ways, set the record straight and show all of you and the public what we do, because it seems like there's a lot of misconceptions. I'm going to hopefully not be too verbose and give you an idea of where things started from a raise the age perspective, paint the picture of where we are now, and also give you an idea of where we are going in the future, as obviously this is a moment where we all know we need to really examine what's going on, what we're doing, and kind of work to do even better than we're already doing. So I think the most important statement here that needs to be made, and I hope everyone takes this to heart, this is not a raise the age issue, okay? That is not to say raise the age, the law can't be improved. This is a juvenile justice, a youth services issue, and it needs to be looked at holistically, okay? No programs have disappeared since the beginning of this process. There have been some changes where services and programs have shifted to other providers. But since the beginning of this process, there has been a gradual increase in services to the populations that we will get into describing this evening, okay? Raise the age passed in 2017, and at that point, the age of responsibility was raised from 16 to 18. Before the passage, you had two populations classified as JD, juvenile delinquent, and JO, juvenile offenders, okay? When raise the age passed, it created a new category that was the AO category, adolescent offender. So when the term raise the age is used, it is only referring to this new group of folks that we need to assist, okay? But when I say this is a larger issue, a youth services issue, it's very important that we continue and maybe even focus on the JD, JO population, as well as folks who are not in the system at all and have now no category whatsoever, okay? When raise the age passed in 2017, the county immediately began a process of coming into compliance with the new law. This required Department of Probation, Department of Children and Families, our county attorney's office, county executive's office, and anyone else involved to begin developing a raise the age plan. And at first it was an implementation plan, correct me if I'm wrong, in those first years, so it was an implementation plan.
Implementation phase in as the law increased. The first year was 17 or 16, and the second year was 17 years old.
So there was an on-ramp, if you will, as we came into compliance. The raise the age plan is a budget where we submit to the state for approval a plan to spend the money that they will reimburse to us for raise the age. It is not a grant program, though we can include in our raise the age plan service providers and things of that nature, but they have to be approved by the state. And I assure you, there is a great deal of back and forth between the state and the county related to what is approved in that plan and what they don't want to approve in that plan. I also want to point out that the approval process for the plans themselves is not immediate. It is a process of conversation with the approving authorities, and the reimbursements for the costs themselves are also not immediate. In fact, they're very delayed, sometimes taking over a year, okay? So that just gives you a picture of how this process of Raise the Age and the funding that is Raise the Age from a terminology perspective, the phrase is really about a funding stream that comes to the county, okay? I also think it's very important to note that because the county runs a juvenile detention facility, CDYCI, CDYCI is a joint facility with the surrounding counties. It involves Rensselaer County, Schenectady County, and Saratoga County. That facility, which is heavily involved with the sheriff's heavily involved in that facility, it went from dealing with just your JD, JO population to now dealing with the AO population, and there were a lot of requirements that those populations couldn't mix. So, a lot of numbers have been thrown out there, which we'll get into a little bit later, but the county's numbers are higher because we just underwent a major expansion of that facility to handle the influx of the AO population into that facility. So a whole new wing was constructed, new facilities, the security of that building had to be upgraded because it was not excessively old, but aged, and because the security requirements for this new population were different. That's just a broad brush kind of setting the stage for Raise the Age and youth justice, youth services scene in Albany County today. With that, I'll kind of pass things off to, I believe, the district attorney, and he can kind of talk about his side of things.
Sure, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us. I think everybody saw in real time my reaction to the events of July 4th, as you saw me absorbing the magnitude of the events the next morning at the press conference, and I did. I took this very seriously because of the age, and as Jeff, as you said, you know, this was supposed to be a great night for everybody, and the kind of the embarrassment that we weren't able to have a good, peaceful, decent night, given all the hard work we've put into public safety over the past couple of years. Mike did a great job of explaining kind of what Raise the Age is. It's a little frustrating for us because everybody needs to know our part in the process, and that is when an AO, the adolescent offender, the AO, is charged initially, we only have a very, very short window to worry about the case, to worry about this AO, this individual charged, because typically within a week of charges being filed, unless we get it through a very small window of opportunity, that AO passes out of the criminal justice system and into the family court system. And this is why I've said repeatedly that the Raise the Age, this paradigm, these sets of laws that were passed a couple of years ago with reforms, they're good, but they're not great, because unfortunately, the district attorney's office loses the ability to prosecute the case in whatever way we see fit, and it immediately, usually within that first week, can be transferred to family court, and then it goes to the county attorney for resolution. And so I'd love to speak meaningfully about all the great programs that the county is doing, and probation works with these AOs once they pass to family court, but because the way the law is structured, I do not have visibility. I don't know what happens to these people, and in fact, I can't about what happens. And one of our frustrations that we have is, you know, let's say John Smith, who's 17 years old, gets arrested with a gun on a Monday, okay? Within 6 days, so let's say by Friday, we have a hearing. It's called a 6-day hearing, right? Typically at that 6-day hearing, as the law is set up, the decision is made that the case is divested, it's transferred from youth part, which is what's this criminal court part is called. It's transferred from criminal court into the family court system. And then the county attorney deals with it, and the family court judge deals with the case, and that's it, we're done, we close the file. If if John Smith is rearrested a month later, and it comes back to my desk, and I'm like, hey, John Smith, whatever happened to this case once it got divested from us and transferred to family? I don't know, and I can't know. And then I can't then bring that up when we're again trying to make the decision about what to do with his new gun case, because he is perpetually, in youth part, a first-time offender. It is frustrating. This is not for us tonight, I know, but I am actively involved in advocating for changes to the law, tweaks, to allow us to better handle these situations and to handle these kinds of cases. How we deal with that on the state level, I know, hopefully will come, but and in terms of the larger juvenile justice problem, I do want to thank the county and probation and the people who do God's work at Youth and Family Services. I mean, I know we're trying to do everything we can to fix this problem. I think it might be better if I just answered questions instead of me just monologuing. So I will stop now. I'll defer to Sheriff Apple, but I'm happy to answer any particular questions from you.
So good evening, thank you for the invite. Look, I'm easy with Raise the Age. I really have minimal involvement. Don't agree with the way the law was set up. Our involvement primarily is chasing young kids with deadly weapons around the streets of the county. And our major involvement actually would be running these kids around to different detention facilities throughout, I can't even say upstate anymore, because we're taking them out west, we're taking them down south. Our facility now has a few beds right now, and I pray to God it stays that way. But look, at the end of the day, we just need more resources, and Raise the Age funds I don't think can be allocated towards us. I need more cops on the street, I need more cops in the courts. I had a conference call yesterday with judges because of our, I want to say, diligent work down here in Albany. Their court and city court is overwhelmed with people, so I need to add deputies down there to help shuffle deputies around because the courts are so crowded and we only have X amount of deputies down there, so some judges have to sit and wait for a case to get adjudicated that day, and then we move somebody to the next courtroom. I'll answer any question you can. We have programs left and right. None of it is funded by Raise the Age monies. I will say that probation they have an unbelievable effort and task ahead of them with this. I'm sure they can use more people, more funds, and they do the best job they can. And I'm a bit dismayed, honestly, why we're sitting here trying to defend ourselves when I know that the great work that the men and women in the DA's office, Children and Family Services, probation, the sheriff's office, I'm constantly coming up and talking to different folks and as commissioners and department heads, hey, what do you think about this? But a lot of it we're restricted by the state to do. And it is, I am a bit dismayed. I'm like, I think we do a great job. And I don't think anybody lobbing missiles back and forth at each other does anybody any good. Let's keep rolling our sleeves up, get down in the streets, and make our streets safe. And that's what we're trying to do here in the county. I'm open for questions, but I don't have many programs regarding RTA.
Ben, thank you all for having me as well. And I want to thank the DA and the sheriff for the partnership and the work they do in the city of Albany as well, throughout the entire county, making our community safe. And that includes through the county programming that we work with them on and through their direct law enforcement work. And I also want to extend a thanks to the Albany Police Department because our probation department and DCYF have a history of working together on a number of different initiatives, including Truancy Abatement Program, Juvenile Justice Mobile Response Team, our SPEAR program, Capital Region Youth Justice Team, the New York State Police Equity Academy, and the Juvenile Justice Call-ins, just to name a few. To get into the programs and services and the Raise the Age plan, as the deputy mentioned, funding has not been cut, and despite the delays in our reimbursement, you'll see that our Raise the Age plans have continued to grow over the years. Just between our last Raise the Age plan that was submitted and the one previous, it grew about $5 million. Just to give a little bit of background, Raise the Age plans include everything from staffing and benefits to the programs, foster care, detention costs, and the like. Our next Raise the Age plan will be growing by another nearly $1 million, and I'll get into that a little bit further. State reimbursement of Raise the Age plans have never been truly reflective of what is requested. A lot of times you'll see these numbers with the differential between what is requested and what is actually reimbursed. Part of that comes down to staffing. Raise the Age funds specific staffing positions. So if those positions go unfilled, we're not getting reimbursed for that amount. And I'm going to stop there and see if Bill and Maura want to jump in at all. I'm going to just let them kind of bounce in and out as I go through the slides.
Thank you, Cam. I think everyone knows we have a separate division at the probation department, our juvenile division, and it serves two primary purposes: intake and diversion. Youth that are arrested, we see them for short periods of time and try and divert them from ever penetrating the system further.
Sir, could you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So we have two functions in our juvenile division. The first function is intake and diversion. As youth get arrested, they come in and we try and divert them from going to court, penetrating the system further by offering them low-level services. Every child that we receive is given a risk instrument, a YAZI risk instrument, a youth assessment screening instrument. It determines the level of risk and need and programming that we're going to offer that child. So if they're a low-level youth, they're going to get a low-level programming, and we hope to divert them from the system and move on. Medium will get medium, and higher will get our higher programming that we can talk about. I have information on that. So we divert them from court. We know the longer we keep them, the more they penetrate the system, is negative to them. The other function is supervision and investigations from family court. The youth that are more severe, that end up going to family court, they come back to us on formal probations of sentence. And a lot of those cases are the adolescent offenders that are reduced to juvenile delinquents in family court. And we do supervise them for periods of time, and they are obviously our more difficult types of cases where we offer a lot of resources to those cases. Just an example, some of our programming from low level to higher level. We run our own juvenile accountability board in the probation department. Members of the community hear cases of youth, low-level crimes, and they vet out sentences of maybe restitution, apology letters, meeting with the victims, like that. We also have community service programming. We have over 25 agencies that we refer youth to perform some type of community services to pay back what they've done. We also give incentives for youth, gift cards. We also use it to buy backpacks, school supplies. We have a resource card at the department. We give a lot of stuff to the youth. And we also then get into more of our mid to higher level programming, cognitive behavior programming, BITS and decision points. BITS, a brief interactive therapy, where probation officers meet with the youth for longer periods of time, and they review the decision-making process that's going forward. That's done individually. We also run group settings, decision points, several sessions where youth can enter at any time given, and they can, it doesn't matter what point they start at, and just continually review decision-making, how they got there, where they are. And our more stronger programming is PATH, Participants' Achievements Through Hard Work. And this is a larger contract to Raise the Age, $400,000. We're going to be increasing it to $500,000 in our next Raise the Age contract. This is one of our more programs that works really well with youth. Social worker, a case manager, and the one thing that is important is credible messenger. Credible messengers, individuals with life experiences that have lived in the community, that have lived with the youth. They continue to meet with the youth, advise them to move them forward in their life, real life experiences. We have up to 70 families per year in that program. The max is 120 days with another 30 days phase out. We also have a couple other programmings. Respite is another alternative to detention, where if the child needs a cooling off place, where they can go there and reside there for a short period of time till we can get them re-involved with their family and their community if there's a residence for them to sit. And another thing that you should know about is that as youth are received as AOs, JOs, JDs, many times they're released to us while their case is pending. We call it just release under supervision. It's similar to bail reform with adults. And these are some of the most serious crimes that we see in the community. These are the ones that the probation, that the newspapers identify as the person on probation. They're not really on probation. They've been to release to us while their case is pending because the court decided not to detain them.
All right, thanks, Bill. And I do want to just point out, because I think there was some discussion over how, the effectiveness of programs. The programs that are run under Raise the Age through probation, through TCYF, are evidence-based. They're considered best practices. Some were developed in probation, like JCAB up there, which won an award from Harvard University. Others are best practices that came from elsewhere. So I just want to clarify, these aren't just, programs that are thrown together, right? These are well-studied, well-thought-out policies. So going off of what Bill went over, I'll pass it over to Maura for her side of things under Raise the Age.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing us to be here this evening. Through the Raise the Age, we are offering services through functional family therapy. We're also offering services through restorative case management services. These too are evidence-based practices that are being utilized. We also support the JCAB in the work that we work with probation very closely, and focus on the future. And that is something that Berkshire Farms, formerly known, is providing that service.
So, and as you can see, based on these two slides, these are just the programs that qualify under Raise the Age. And so I want to draw a distinction that is sometimes overlooked, the difference between Raise the Age funding and prevention services programming funding. So Raise the Age is primarily funded through DCJS, and prevention services programming is funded under OCFS. Now, there's some overlap between the two when it comes to prevention services. Sometimes that funding, those programs for specific individuals can be funded through Raise the Age. So when you look at the Raise the Age plans, you'll see a small reimbursement under the comprehensive plan or DCYF. But then I'll show you what is considered under prevention services that is not Raise the Age. You'll see that number is quite larger. So I just wanted to point that out. And there might be some individuals that are saying, Raise the Age funds are not being used, but there's also this whole separate pot of money under prevention services that is coming from OCFS, the State Office for Children, Youth, and Families.
And this gets into what I mentioned before about whether something is Raise the Age, is accepted in a Raise the Age plan as qualifying for Raise the Age funding, or if it's categorically considered on their level, not part of Raise the Age funding.
And if I may add, we also have STSJP funding, which is supervision and treatment services for juveniles. So they don't meet the requirements or eligibility for Raise the Age. But these are juveniles that are approaching further involvement in either probation or the family court system. And we too have a contract with Northern Rivers for the PATH program and really find those credible messengers really effective in working with our juveniles. In addition, we also support funding through our juvenile justice evaluation. We contract with SUNY Albany, and they really look at the data to ensure that our programs are effective in dealing with these juveniles and not having them further penetrate the probation or family court system, to prevent them being involved in Raise the Age. We also have parent partner services, which are really effective in engaging families because families are often challenged. So a parent partner is someone who's walked the walk and had worn the shoes, if you will, of a parent that is either involved in the juvenile justice system or the mental health system or even the child welfare system. So that is very powerful to have another peer that is supporting and assisting families. And then we also provide pre-diversion services through the STSJP plan. And that is, again, to prevent the youth to engage in juvenile delinquent behaviors.
Thanks, Mark. And so on the board, you'll see these are the prevention programming service providers. These are all contracts that begin January 1st of this year. So I just wanted to point out the difference, because when we're talking about Raise the Age, like the deputy said, it's not just Raise the Age. We're talking about prevention services that are ongoing, that we're making these investments.
And many times engage individuals before they cross over into Raise the Age.
Yeah, and then on top of what is being reimbursed by the state, whether it's through Raise the Age, OCFS, what have you, we have this whole other set of programs, these legacy programs that both probation and DCYF have been pioneering and doing incredible work on, and this is all coming out of the county budget. Ready, Set, Work, Project Growth, Career University, the 5-hour DMV pre-licensing course, GED. These are all on top of everything that we're doing through Raise the Age funding. I don't know, Bill, do you want to jump in at all on any of these programs?
Yeah, so one we're quite proud of is our pre-permit course. So we are authorized by the Department of Motor Vehicles. We are the only probation department in New York State that has this authority. And we run a pre-permit class where people can get their 5-hour card. Individuals can then take the drive road test. So they have to have their permit, and we give them pre-instructions, and then we go right into the course. And working with the executive's office, Michael Coughlin, a few years ago, we met with the officials from the state, presented our plan, because we realized a lot of our youth need transportation as they move forward in life for employment and other things. And it's just another tool that we have to assist them moving forward.
Thanks, Bill. And that goes the same for the Department of Children, Youth, and Families and their programming, whether it's pass-through or what have you.
Correct. And, again, we receive money from OTDA for the Summer Youth Employment Program. A majority, I should say almost all of the money goes to the City of Albany for employment opportunities for youth over the summer. We also have a plethora of services that we provide through the Youth Bureau, and money is allocated for after-school programs, for activities during the weekend, sports activities, and again, are beneficial to the community. Fourth Family is very exciting. Fourth Family is a new program that we have been contracting with. They have developed a youth advisory board for us. So it's really getting that youth voice at the table while we're looking at programming. Because if we think of programming in one way, the youth may not utilize it. But this way, we're engaging the youth and finding out what they want in their community. And of course, you know what the PAL, we provide support to them, Girls and Boys Club, and the South End Children's Cafe, which just moved to a new location, so if you haven't seen it, it's great. And we just met with them a few weeks ago. They're going to expand their hours. So after the younger youth go home, they will expand it and open their doors for teens, which is fantastic.
Thanks, Maura. And one other initiative that we launched earlier this year through our County Crime Victims and Sexual Violence Center. It's actually an initiative we partnered with the legislature on through the Improvement Initiative Fund. This is something that the late Matt Peter had championed as well. It targets young people involved in crime, whether they're involved in it or they're victims of it. So it's really going into communities quickly, quickly after an event takes place, and really connecting them with our County Crime Victims and Sexual Violence Center to get them the services they need. So that is just another one of the initiatives on top of Raise the Age. And then we added a few more things, and I don't want to belabor this, just examples of the way the county is really going above and beyond in funding the nonprofits locally that are doing the important work beyond just county government, whether it's through ARPA. You'll see here in the next two slides, funding worth around $1.5 million that we awarded just for youth programming, workforce development, and violence prevention. So that was all delivered this year. So you really are going to see the impacts there. And the legislative grant programs, I'm sure you all are familiar with these since you championed them, but these are just more examples of the way we are targeting youth and trying to provide them with the services they need to prevent violence and just improve health and wellness generally, investing in parks for our municipalities. We could go into this a little bit more, but as was referenced earlier, and what had been referenced in a lack of programming, it's important to reiterate that no programs have been eliminated. We did have an issue with a provider with our evening reporting center, but that money, as the deputy referenced, was reallocated. Future programs and development, as was referenced, we are including within the new Raise the Age plan that is being finalized at this moment, a new evening reporting center through Northern Rivers, I believe.
It's going to be a future RFP to go out.
Yeah,
So it's
okay.
yet to be named provider.
Okay, yeah, and so that will be going out. Project Growth expansion, as all of you are familiar with Project Growth, and Bill can elaborate on this a bit further if you want to just.
Yeah, Project Growth is one of our great programs. It started years ago in the county attorney office, and the purpose is what it was at the time for adjudicated youth to repay restitution through some type of work performance. We took over the program years ago, and it's evolved to so much more. We provide evidence-based programming. Many of our programs where we have youth for several weeks. We usually have some type of service project. Our service project this summer, we're going to be building picnic tables at the Anley Pond, and then all the youth would receive additional stipends for being in the program. If any of them owe restitution, that money will be used to repay the restitution. Youth enjoy it, or their parents enjoy it. It's just an overall great program. We run it 3 to 4 times a year. We like to take the kids from Watson's Lake a lot, go out there and do a lot of our programming out there with youth.
Just to add on to that, so part of the special part of Project Growth was it allowed youth working off restitution to be able to keep some of what they were working towards. So they were able to kind of get a taste for working, getting a paycheck, and kind of hopefully set them on a path for employment. And Bill's done a fantastic job partnering with unions to kind of get them some training and really expand the program to what it is now.
Yeah, and the idea behind the expansion would be adding a mentorship component, and Stephanie in our office has been doing a great job in helping developing this, but connecting those legacy individuals who have been through the program and connecting them with new individuals in the program. And Maura, if you want to jump in on any of these other ones
Oh, I'm
that we
sorry.
added to the list, feel free to jump in.
I
There's a
think
couple
mine's
slides here.
there. Yes, so we actually have a juvenile justice RFP that's out there currently, looking for additional supports and services in the community. And that is due back August 1st. We will score them and see what agency is awarded. We also have workforce development that we're working towards with BOCES and working with the Workforce Development Board. And then as well, the Youth Leadership Academy, supported by the legislature.
Yep, and that's a legislative initiative that's in development as well. And I know DCYF is excited to be working with you guys on that. And I think generally speaking, I think what we need and what we're developing right now is focusing not just on prevention, but also just improving beyond what we've already done with the county. Recreational programs that are a focus of at-risk youth. There's plenty of amazing organizations that we know of that connect, the sports programming with mentorship components that really are valuable to young people. And like we said, I think we got to keep repeating this over and over again. It's about preventing these children from ever touching the criminal justice system in the first place. That needs to be our focus. Raise the Age funding is important, but we need to get to them before they ever touch the criminal justice system. So I'll now, in terms of going forward for policy changes and recommendations, I'll pass it back over to Deputy.
One thing I want to mention just briefly is there's been some chatter about recreation programs and how there's a perception that we don't need more basketball or whatever the case may be. And we can talk about maybe we don't need more basketball, we need more baseball or whatever. But the moral of the story is that if you're not engaged in the system, and we don't want you to be, those programs are unbelievably important. Because if you are a youth out there, you're not going to walk in for a family conference with DCYF because you're having problems at home. You're not. So anyone who's out there that's saying these, they shouldn't be a basis of the system, they're actually incorrect. Because if we want to get to kids, to youth, before and get a hook that will have them buy in, and then maybe that recreational program, whether it's athletically based, art based, whatever the case may be, educationally based, can then also offer mentorship and other mental health services. That is really a much better methodology, more effective methodology of getting them in the door to provide assistance. So I want to clarify that because there has been some chatter about how maybe they're not as important as we think they are, and we really believe that they are. In terms of the future, aside from some of the items that have been mentioned, this is the start of a process. We wanted to come to you first to begin letting everybody in the county know where we stand. I think we can take a deep breath. There's a lot of information, a lot of programs that we've shown you today. Moving forward, we're going to need significant engagement. We're going to start, state delegation, federal delegation. The two fine gentlemen to my left have kind of referenced changes. They know those things better than I, but we will bring that case to them. They will bring it to them, and hopefully have some success on refining the laws that are on the books to more effectively allow us to serve youth. From there, there's going to have to be significant engagement with the city school district. They're a major player in this. I'll tell you a little story. When I first started here 15 years ago, there was a program under the leadership of Bill's predecessor. It was a truancy program. It was an award-winning program. The county had $100,000 back then involved in a truancy program in conjunction with the city of Albany. We worked very closely with Commissioner Jonathan Jones, who's also still over there. That program went away. I've never understood why, but I know that the city school district still has some struggles with truancy, and I think that they're willing to admit that. And we're really hoping that beyond truancy, we can really have a constructive conversation with the city school district to cooperate a lot more, maybe integrate and catch the youth further upstream or downstream, whatever direction, as Cam mentioned, to prevent them from getting into the system. So there's going to need to be a lot of engagement there, engagement with our fellow municipalities in the county, City of Albany and APD, but there's other municipalities who are having issues. There's been an issue recently in Watervliet, and I'm sure that the sheriff can speak to what he sees throughout the county. This is a county-wide issue. It is. I know the focus has been the City of Albany, but there are other places that we need to be working as well. So we're going to have that conversation, and then from that point, we'll expand things because we're going to want to engage our service providers. They're boots on the ground, and they do fantastic work, and we need to hear from them as well. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to toss it back to the chairman and proceed.
Sure. So we'll make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask questions, make comments. I guess I'll start. I have a few questions, but let me start out with one. Mr. McLaughlin, on the day after the events of the 4th of July, the City of Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan gave a press conference where she made the following statement, quote, "What's frustrating to me as the mayor of Albany is that when Raise the Age was passed, tens of millions of dollars were made available to counties to engage young people who were going to now not be prosecuted as adults. And in Albany County, instead of getting more programs, we have less. I don't understand why," unquote. So my first question, I'd like to get your reaction to Mayor Sheehan's statement. And in particular, I would like to know if there is any truth to the mayor's assertion that Albany County has fewer programs to engage young people today than it did when New York State's Raise the Age legislation first went into effect in 2018.
Mr. Chairman, I don't understand the statement, and it is not true. We have more programs. Cam referenced one particular provider, Evening Boarding Center, where funds had to be redirected and the program had to be shifted, and we are now kind of going back to the previous model through an RFP. But from the beginning of Raise the Age, even if you take that exception, that unique circumstance out, the number of programs has expanded significantly, and we want to continue to expand it significantly. So my reaction is, I don't know what they're referencing, and I would like to get some clarification because, frankly, if we have missed something, and maybe there's something on their level that has gone away, we're very interested in re-engaging, but I'm not familiar with anything that was referenced.
Okay, thanks. Now, this is really a general question for everybody. Does the panel agree that with the sort of sense that I talked about at the very beginning, that there has been an increase in crime, I suppose, I mean, there's a lot to talk about Raise the Age, by minors that are subject to Raise the Age over the last several years in Albany County, either from your sense of it or from whatever empirical data you might have on that issue?
Well,
I believe so.
A lot of this data is available on DCJS website, the arrest. I didn't prepare for that tonight, I think the amount of arrests has been consistent over the last few years, but we are seeing more violent crimes being committed by the youth.
Since Raise the Age came into effect?
I believe so.
Is that, Sheriff, is that yours?
I believe so. Like Bill said, it's the violence, right? Maybe it's not the volume, but it's the violence. But, I mean, the DA sees it and lives it.
We do have some numbers, Chairman, and I'm happy to provide them to you after this. Just so everyone gets a sense, and I had my office put together some numbers, and we got it from probation as well. But in the past, well, since October 2018 up until June of this year, so this is pretty current, there have been a total number of cases, 546. So this year alone, 2024, again, we're talking, let's talk JOs and AOs, so 15, 16, 17, 14, 15, 16, 17, 4, so a total of 76 cases.
And is a case a crime or an
Yeah.
individual?
It's a individual who may have been charged with a number of things. So yeah, when I say case in my brain, I think the 64 arrests, or I'm sorry, 76 total arrests of JOs and AOs, okay? And this is 2024. So let's talk AOs, which is that smaller number, that's the Raise the Age number of the adolescent offenders that the Deputy County Executive was talking about. In 2024, there were 64 AO arrests. So and again, I've got year-by-year breakdowns over the past couple of years that we can provide to everybody offline. I didn't bring my giant Excel sheet. It exists, but
Is there a trend in those figures?
the trend is actually pretty. It's static. You know, some statistician can say it's probably the deviation is within the mean. So you're going to see some ups and some downs, but it's pretty much level. So again, so everyone gets a sense of some of the numbers we're dealing with. In that 6.5-year period from October of 2018 to June of this year, again, 546 total AO cases, 269 were violent offenses. Of those 546, 142 involved a gun. 37, a gun was discharged, and nonviolent cases were 277. So nonviolent, what would be considered nonviolent felony arrests it was about half. So a little more than half were violent felonies, a little less than half were nonviolent. And again, last year, 64 AO arrests, 12 JO arrests, for a total of 76 total arrests in the JO AO. Okay. So you're seeing, again, within a couple percentage points, it's about static.
For those of you who are closest to the situation, maybe that's all of you, do you think, the argument that is made is that there are certain, that some people who would be subject, who are potentially AOs, feel emboldened by the Raise the Age law, and that is increasing crime. I'm curious to hear your perspectives on that, if there's anything to that or not.
I'd like to introduce everybody to my assistant district attorney, who is my boots on the ground. His name's Nick Vitari. Nick is the gentleman who has been in youth part and family court for my office for what, like 3 years?
3 years.
If anyone can provide anecdotal evidence, is always the death of any argument, because I heard about a guy who, but if anybody can provide perhaps the most comprehensive anecdotal history of what he sees and hears and experiences every day in the system, it's 88 Batari. So if I could, with your permission, sir, just turn the floor over to him and have him answer that question in terms of what he sees and experiences every day when he goes
Yeah,
down.
and absolutely, and Sheriff, I would in particular be interested in your perspective on this as well.
Yeah, to answer it shortly, I think definitely for sure. I think a lot of times they're telling the officers like, nothing's gonna happen to me. A lot of times adults are giving, guns to the children, they're having them steal cars so they can commit crimes. They have the children do the shooting, stuff like that. I mean, it is anecdotal, but oftentimes they are saying, nothing's gonna happen to me, you can't do anything.
So I think the perception is taking hold in, within the kind of overall community that the youth know that our options are rather limited when it comes to, the so-called stick. we got a lot of carrots, but not a lot of sticks anymore. So I think it's becoming increasingly difficult for us to manage the situation as that knowledge spreads.
Sheriff, did you have perspective on that?
What Nick said is 100% accurate. These kids on the street don't care. They don't care about us. They feel they're going to walk right away. And honestly, it's not just the kids. The adults are going to too. There's something problematic in our community when we arrest a guy for a loaded handgun and he walks out of court the next morning. And the only reason I say the next morning is because we're doing pre-arraignment detainees. So at least they get a taste of it. But most places, they're walking out right then and there. And it's the same as a young individual. They don't care. They don't have any fear. They know nothing is going to happen. And I know there's a big emphasis on programs, but I'd also like to sit down and have a bunch of people look at what these people that are getting 100 grand, 150 grand, where's the data from your program? Just show me what's going on with that 100 grand. Are we in fact touching people, or is this salaries, or what is it? Are we getting to the youth? Because I totally agree with the executive's theory on, we gotta get these kids early. You wanna see what your community's gonna look like? Take a ride down to Griffin or to Giffen and see what's going on in that school. Take a ride out to Bern, Westerlo, Bethlehem, wherever, and look what your young kids are doing and see how if they're respectful and what's going on, because that's what your community's gonna look like in a few years. So I'm a total advocate of getting to these young kids before they touch any of this, and that's where I'd like to see a lot of the money go. There's a big emphasis on programs, but if you don't have a willing participant, your program is not gonna work. And we're dumping $1.5 million. Give me that $1.5 million. I'll give you some different numbers.
Well, I have other questions, but I'm going to let other people have an opportunity to talk. So, Ms. Meadow, do you want to?
As the parent of two youth who went through the Albany City School District, we've had a lot of opportunity to have discussions about juvenile justice, prevention services, both with the children themselves as they went through the school systems, as well as the teachers, the counselors, a whole new category that's been created of coordinators of these services for each of the schools. And by all accounts, there are a lot of programs and they come with very good intentions. The programs are being carried out. There are students participating in them. The outcomes are not what any of us are looking for. What the sheriff said is exactly what I'm hearing from the school community. So I'd like to ask some of the folks on the panel, do you have any insight into the population that we're missing, the components of the programs that we're missing? We're clearly missing something.
Thank you. At this point in time, the last RFP that we gave out for prevention, we asked for family resource centers, places that really youth can drop in, feel safe, because that's the biggest thing. It's not safe in the community, and that's why they have weapons and other things. That we just actually had a ribbon cutting 2 weeks ago at Northern Rivers. It's a beautiful facility. It's really engaging the youth. They're going to be They have a barber chair, so they're gonna be like teaching a barber chair, how kids can cut hair. They also have a music room. So they actually have folks coming in from FX that is providing some, piano and it's a lot of great stuff. And, dance and things of that nature. So we need more programs such as that, is what I believe. We're gonna be going to the youth board and asking them what they want to see. In addition, I think another underlying factor is the issue of truancy. That there's a other root cause for a child not to go to school. But in the Albany City School Districts, as well as Cohoes, we have the two together provides a home run program, which is a truancy prevention. So hopefully they don't get to the level that they need to access probation. But we are also working with the city school district on a pre-diversion program. So we're intervening with a caseworker, and he's actually going into the school, engaging that youth, if the youth is at home, and really a kudos to him, because this youth improved his attendance and won an award at our Youth Recognition Awards last month. So he improved his attendance.
If I could, look, for probation, we still accept PINS, truancy, and the truancy complaints we receive, these youth are absent 100 or more days per year. And our issue is family engagement, engaging with the parents to work with us to get that youth to attend to school. That's where the difficulty is in many of those cases.
I think part of it too, I think Maura mentioned it, and I think going off of what you asked about how to create better programs that are engaging with that the youth are willing to engage with. I think you touched on it, the Juvenile Accountability Board, and through Fourth Family and SPEAR, where we're actually engaging with the community and trying to find out what is working and what isn't. And I think that is sort of the heart of what a lot of this is, right? The good intentions, but do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
The
Fourth
Youth
Family
Youth Advisory
Board, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yes, the Youth Advisory Board, we really want to, again, get their feedback. But that's, the engagement of the workers from Fourth Family is incredible. They pretty much all have a history of not only juvenile justice involvement when they were younger, but incarceration. So these youth really can look at, even if I've gone down a bad path, I can turn things around. And I think really knowing the credible messengers in the community is key. We have a great program through PATH, as well as we're very excited about the fourth generation and all the work that they are doing.
All right.
If I could just add to that, there's a lot of people out in our community that have touched the system that want to help. Actually, just today I got a message that I just asked my assistant to respond to. He's made it great producing albums. He's made his name, and he's like, listen, I've been reading what's going on in the city. It was my home. I want to come back and help. Maybe we can do something jointly and teach kids how to record some music and make some beats, whatever. He goes, I'll do whatever I can do. So we're going to touch base with him, and we'll try that and see what happens. I mean, look, you guys know me. We've tried program after program. We've got hundreds of kids a week out playing lacrosse. We got kids going to the park, which I know the park got thrown into it that it's not in the city of Albany. But many times we want to remove people from that environment and bring them out and teach them how to hunt and fish and, and walk the trails and have fun and just let them know that, hey, there's other stuff out there other than bricks and mortar, and have some fun. And, I mean, that's why I said I think the county does a damn good job, better than probably most of our neighbors. And I think I've also said many times we're just horrible marketers. Right? We get fixated, we get tunnel vision on doing our task and solving our mission, but we just don't get good marketing. And I'm sitting here with pamphlets and books and everything else, and I'm like, man, I forgot I even did that. And I mean, I've been speaking with the chairwoman and the county executive and the DA. We're gonna kick off another program just to try to get guns off the street. We're gonna do a gun buyback with some private businesses, but we're also gonna try to incentivize families to search a kid's room and get me a gun, and I'll give you a lot of money for it. It's just a sneak tidbit if anyone's listening. And we'll give you a lot of money. Just try to incentivize people, you know? I mean, some of the money's gonna be hard to turn down, but we need to get guns off the street. We need to try anything and everything we can out there. But I also am totally against just throwing money at programs just to say that we're throwing money at programs. We need to look at the data and see what these programs are doing.
Thank you. Can I, and we just keep talking, but I just want to make one more point. With specific reference to the events of July 4th, the individuals we suspect are involved, we're not entirely sure that they've, again, there are only accusations. I can't really discuss the case, especially because I can't discuss ages or anything, just generally. We're not entirely sure that these individuals had ever been involved in any programs, despite their abundance, that they'd ever been through Youth Part, Raise the Age, any of that. So it was a very good point made to me by Assemblywoman Gabby Romero, who said, well, Lee, can you show us that these, that any of these individuals, any of the people involved that night had been justice affected? And I can't, right? So, you know, I think that there's something to understand that despite our best efforts, and I mean our best efforts of the collective minds of everybody, I'm not entirely sure we can or have the ability to, you know, reach out and touch every single young man and woman in Albany County and pull them away from bad influences, bad decisions, bad ideas. And Ashley Slaver brought this. Ashley is the probation officer who like works in family court.
She's in family court each day.
She's
She
great.
goes in on all the cases.
But she's like, look, we want to do home visits, but some of these kids are homeless or don't have, you know, a permanent place to live, so I can't reach them every day. I mean, they're unfortunately, despite our best efforts, which is why I back up the sheriff's comments, it's like, look, we're doing the best we can sometimes. Sometimes it's just, we have to understand, you know, it's finite what our abilities may be. So it's still frustrating, but we're pushing forward, but that's where we are right now.
Raise the lower age, so children between the ages of 7 and 12 that used to go to probation are now coming to DCYF through a state mandate. And we got no money to support that, so we're putting those kids into our prevention programs. If we can't engage them, if the families don't want to, we kind of check a box, and, you know, so we need, you know, kind of the frustration the DA said, we need some teeth to say to these families, you need to do this.
Yeah, that's, I think, a distinction that we haven't kind of directly said, but, you know, if the DA is able to keep control of the case, the offender can be fundamentally sentenced to a program, which is good. But if it's lost to family court, that stick that the DA may have, we've been joking in my office, kind of turns into a toothpick, and it's really more of a poke to get them into programming, because in family court they don't have that stick. So that is a distinction that I want everybody to know, because, you know, there was an event where some of, I think, 2 of the individuals involved on the 4th went to family court and just decided to leave.
No, it's different.
Was that different? Oh, I'm sorry, that was
Those
something else.
Those were juvenile.
Either way, so they decided to leave. I'm sorry. And there's nothing you can do to stop us. And then, yeah, we got a call over the weekend that they had moved
So
within
with
the county to another
With all the
municipality.
changes, lower age kids can no longer be put in secure detention in police or sheriff custody. They're put at a non-secure placement area, and they're transported by a social worker. And in this event that Michael's talking about, these kids just ran away while the social worker was putting them in the car. That's how brazen they were.
Okay, Mr. Fink. Question for the DA.
Yes, sir.
You've talked about tweaks needed in the law. Can you explain what tweaks you think are needed?
Sure. Let me talk generally about some of the ideas that are being batted around amongst us district attorneys. We just had our DA conference a couple weeks ago. This is a bigger deal just by numbers and maybe when it comes to New York City. So, look, it can go all the way up to taking away a judicial discretion entirely and just saying, okay, if you're charged with X, you stay in criminal court. If you're charged with Y, you go to family court. It's just, you check a box. I'm not sure we want that. To talk about some of the tweaks, it's to get like legal nerdy and into the weeds for a bit, but just so bear with me. I'll just kind of talk generally about some of the things that I think we need to do when it comes to changing. Really, it comes down to a couple of words in the raise the age statute. So one of the things that we always talk about is what's called physical injury, right? So let's say, hypothetically, the sheriff and I want to beat up Joe, my chief, right? And we take him outside and we rough him up, and Joe has, at the end of it, serious physical injury. And serious physical injury is a phrase that's already in the penal law. It's something we talk about. It's something we lawyers know. Okay. The way that the raise the age law is written, though, it has significant physical injury in it. Significant physical injury before the raise the age reforms came along has never been defined, and no one knows what it really means. It sounds worse than serious physical injury. It's significant, and so that's the first problem. Is we have this word that nobody defines, and therefore we think it's bigger than serious physical injury, which is the standard we all know. That's problem number one. Just this one little thing. Problem number two: the way the law is written, we prosecutors need to prove that either Craig or the sheriff or I are the ones who actually caused this serious or significant physical injury to Joe. It's not just the two of us beat him up real bad and caused this injury. It's that I have to prove as the prosecutor that one of us caused that significant physical injury to this person. And if we can't do that, we lose jurisdiction of the case. I mean, it's bananas. Over both defendants. Bananas. And like, that's not how a court system is supposed to work. And, so my victim, who might himself be, at that point, 16 and have his, one eye socket punched in, he might be missing a tooth, suddenly turns around and goes, wait a minute, those two goons who beat me up last week, their criminal case is dismissed, and now they're in family court, and the worst that can happen is they're put on probation, and they're back in school with me or whatever, they're walking the street. So suddenly this guy, who just got beat up by two people, thinks, wait a minute, there are no consequences? And this is the thing we talk about where, you talk about justice affected, like, now I've got a victim who's traumatized, and that trauma kind of spreads, and the sense of lawlessness spreads. So, we talk about tweaks, I talk about changing wording, significant to serious. You talk about acting alone or acting in concert with, right? That's gonna do something. Second problem. This is the gun problem. Right now, if I, as a youth, in the raise the age paradigm, if I if I display a gun, I must display a gun in order to stay in criminal court. If I possess the gun, that gets transferred into family court. So I could be on my way with a gun in my waistband, to commit a crime, and the sheriff's guys could stop me on the street, driving a car, find the gun, and because I didn't display it, because I only possessed it, that case gets transferred from youth park to family court. And that's that 6-day hearing. It's like, you go, well, did you display it? No. Oh, he only possessed it? Yes? Okay, family court. Which, again, dealing with these cases every day as with adults, if one of the sheriff's guys pulls over a car and there's a gun in a car, that is something that my office indicts and demands state prison. But somehow we think that a 16-year-old carrying around a loaded handgun is somehow not extraordinary. Those are, honestly, if we had those changes, we're on third base. I mean, we're almost home. And there are other little things. And again, I think just comes with the rush of how the legislature passed the law 6-7 years ago. Terms aren't defined. We're kind of falling back on legislative discussions that have now kind of become case law. And then, of course, one of my problems I have as a litigator is there's no appeal process. Once we lose, once the case gets diverted to family court, I can't appeal. I can't say, you know what, the judge decided it is unappealable. And other DA's offices have tried, and they lose because it's unappealable. So we can't, we institute appeal as a matter of right. And again, the thing I talked about, how these AOs are always perpetual first-time offenders. Like every time they come back in front of the court, even though the law says they're supposed to be able to consider whether or not, like, hey, if I put you in family court, you'll be amenable to the heightened services of family court. If they're not, if they like get arrested and they get rearrested, Nick can't go before the judge and say, look, judge, he's not amenable to the heightened services of family court because we just had this knucklehead 6 weeks ago and he's back. We can't consider that. So, there are certain tweaks that I think, I don't want to throw out the law, I want to make these changes legislatively, and I think it's going to solve a lot of these problems. So, I could go on and on. Clearly, I get really animated about the law. I just love it. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if I'm mad at Kathy Sheehan or happy that she made those comments. Because before she made those comments, none of us in a forum like this were grappling with what the hell are we going to do. Now, you got a couple of schools of thought here, and there are aspirational programs. And Mike, you and Dan have done a phenomenal job in building. I did a rough, what I call a gazinta, about $7 million worth of programs a year, diversion, counseling, all sorts of best efforts. But you know something? The sheriff is right. It's not working. It's not working. You got 14-year-old kids taking the bus to Waterville and knifing a 14-year-old girl. And we can't use the word gangs because we're afraid to use the word gangs. They're people who know each other. We've got a situation where the state legislature, and very much including our own legislators here in Albany County, broke the system in 2017. They gave you raise the age, they gave you bail reform, they gave you discovery reform, which through the evolution of time has created what the sheriff once again said is no consequences and nobody cares because they're not going to pay a penalty. I think, these are statewide problems, and I realize the leadership of the Senate and the Assembly and the governor each have their own positions. But until our own legislators, they should be in this room here with us today. Because I want to ask, which of them is going to carry this legislation that Lee wants? I'm not sure if his words are enough to solve the problem. You know, they did discovery reform this year, and that was heralded. It was, oh, the DA's got their discovery reform. Well, it was all signed, and all this stuff happened on July 4th, so that really didn't cause much of a problem. But until everyone in this room, and it's easier for me, because most of the people that I know in the state legislature were people who oppose these things. But sometimes you gotta do the hard thing, is you gotta be able to tell your friends that they were wrong, and they have to change. And until people rally to that point and say, we can't, what does the mayor want us to do? Spend another $7 million? I'd like to know how much she's spent in her last 2 years in the city of Albany. Probably nickels and dimes. Why it becomes a county obligation is beyond me. But this is not an issue of money for programs. It's an issue of the criminal justice system is broken. And aspirationally, you can do all the programs, and I salute, I've voted for every one of them over the last 10 years. Sometimes a little more aspirationally than others, but it's not cutting the mustard anymore. There's no personal responsibility. How is it that there are 14-year-old kids out at 1 in the morning? Who's responsible for that? Is it their parents, single parent, double parents, guardian? I don't know. We're talking about all these providers that are going to provide these wonderful programs, but they didn't, I very clearly heard what you said, Lee, which was of the folks that were involved on July 4th, none of these had ever, at least the ones you think you know about, had any relationship with any programs or whatever. How do you get to these people who all of a sudden feel it's safe to carry a gun at 14 and to shoot someone you don't like? You get a bigger problem than how to pay for it. And it's time that people are unified in saying this has to change, regardless of party and regardless of who your friends are, and you don't want to insult them and, oh, I had to vote for it, I'm a committee chairman, I had to show the speaker that I'm responsible. Well, look where it got us. We bought into a whole criminal justice system that's fallen apart around the state around us. And, helping with the root cause efforts, it's a great term now, root cause, we're going in, aspirational programs. Root cause is great, but if you just stop it, it's time for, in my estimation, it's time for a little tough love, back to tough love. And you gotta protect people. I heard somebody say, well, we're serving the kids, and that's great. We're serving the kids, but when people are getting shot and houses are getting burned down in quantities of 10, it's time to protect the public, not the people who are committing the offenses. So I don't know if that was a question, but I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Questions, comments, that's fine. Anybody else? Yes.
So I have a quick question. There's a lot of commentators and they're talking about youth and cognitive development. So I'm curious to see how mental health plays into the upticks in violence and also COVID, because a lot of these kids that are now becoming offenders may have been at home with a parent that had some mental health issues for a significant period of time. So are we looking at that in conjunction to raise the age, so mental health and then effects of COVID?
Yeah, so there's a few underlying things here that probably haven't been mentioned. You just brought up one, thank you, COVID impact, and things of that nature. In all of it, as I see it in my time here in doing some level of social services on the state level, gets to what Cam has mentioned a couple times, and I think a
few other folks, which is getting to youth earlier on in their lives. So when we're doing the truancy program, you know, the truancy officers that we're doing elementary schools really need to be the focus. And when you find a child who's 70 days truant in elementary school, you know, it needs to be like, you know, our mental health mobile crisis unit. Like, you hit the button and they come and screaming, because that family is clearly in crisis. And there's the rates of, you know, poor outcomes for a child who is 70 days, you know, truant, you know, absent the exceptions for, you know, terrible sickness and things of that nature, are astronomically high. And so whether it's services for the child, but more importantly, services for the family, that gets that child back into the school, an educational environment that works for them, and provides a level of familial support. Could be mental health, that could be you know, navigating the system of public benefits, whatever the case may be, to prevent that upstream, getting my different directions of stream messed up, but down the line issues. That is where, I think, to Mr. Bergdorf's point, we begin getting ahead of this. And I say that because, again, given my familiarity because of the truancy program, the truancy program for the high schoolers look very different than the truancy program for the younger kids, because the truancy program for the high schoolers required a lot more effort on the part of the truancy officers, because you're talking about older individuals who are rapidly approaching adulthood, who, if they don't want to engage, they're not going to engage. And the resources necessary to get those folks back on the path are much more significant than for the younger folks. But yes, the moral of the story is that mental health and those services, which are wrapped into everything, they're all wrapped into the programs that were outlined, are incredibly important.
Or did you want to build on that?
No, I just, you know, we actually provide mental health services, and that is something that we definitely monitor and watch. And the numbers have increased regarding depression and anxiety that youth are challenged with.
Yeah, and we also have our mental health curriculum that we've been working on with our school districts, and that's a work in progress too. But again, it's something that we've talked about repeatedly. There's a certain level of parental involvement that's required, or parental sign-off. We've had times where parents just don't want their children to be involved in the mental health curriculum, that they have it under control, right? So, you know, I think we do put our best foot forward, but it does take the parents to get involved. And part of that too is connecting all of our different social service programs together. So what we're trying to do is connect our Parks and Rec department with health, with mental health, with DCYF. That way it's sort of like this holistic approach. Like, if we could connect with the children, maybe we can also connect with the parents. So I think that is something that we're working on, but it's easier said than done, quite frankly.
And I think that's where the key of the parent partner comes in.
Yep.
Because, you know, parent partners are much more trusted than someone from the county or Child Protective Services coming in, that they are, you know, a peer-to-peer.
I do want to get us all out of here by the bottom of the hour, so Ms. Lockhart.
Thank you, Chairman. I was also very taken back reading about Mayor Sheehan's comments, especially, I have a long history of dealing with a lot of county people here at the table from my job that I've retired from. And I'm going to tell you that I know how hard you guys work and what you do for the kids that you can reach. And we have seen success with some of those kids. But what the sheriff is saying too is so true. When I hear, is it increasing? And we say, well, the data. I'm going to tell you, the data doesn't tell you anything anymore. There are people, I did just briefly, I did a thing about retail theft. I was trying to find out. I went to all the pharmacies in my district and outside, right outside my district. They do not report crimes anymore. They don't, because they know nothing happens. They're afraid of the kids that are coming in, and it's the same in the city. We're seeing businesses close up because they're afraid. They can't keep stuff on their shelves, everything has to be locked. So, but those aren't numbers in your books. You know, we don't even know what that truly is. So when they say is crime up, is it down, whatever it is, I don't really pay a lot of attention to that. And the other problem that I have is, as great as it is to get to the young kids, we have to. If we don't take care of the other end of it, the older brother that's going out and creating crime, that little kid might be doing great in all our programs as an intervention, early intervention, hasn't been in trouble. But they're watching, they're modeling, and they're gonna follow in those footsteps. So but I want you folks here at the table from our departments to understand, however we got to this table, this isn't, Craig said at the beginning of this, I don't know why we're here having to defend yourself. I hope you don't feel you are, because I think you are doing a fantastic job with what's happening in our communities. And it's not just the city of Albany. I'm in the village of Colony, right between Albany and Schenectady. And let me tell you, come sit at our firehouse someday and see what's going out on that avenue. So it's not just you guys. And I just want to show you the support for everything that you do. And I think it's a bigger problem that we can address in one night. But I'm glad the DA is looking to change the laws, because I think that's going to help. I think that we need to provide the sheriff with whatever he needs to start hitting those streets and doing some, you know, even more than what you're doing now, to get this stuff off the streets and hold them accountable, whatever we can do. So it's a lot of things together. But my main thing is to want you to know that, and I think I can speak for the whole committee here, that you have our support. We're not asking you to come here to defend your work. We know how hard you work, and that you can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually just want to start by thanking Lee, DA, for breaking down the raise the age, the issues that you feel, what you feel are some of those issues with raise the age. Because I have been paying attention to the age when the police department sent out the notifications involving gun violence in Albany, the city of Albany. And each time I open those notifications, I see 15-year-old, 14-year-old, and stuff like that. So just before you started the meeting, I wrote down that because I believe it was Deputy County Executive that said the age was raised from 16 to 18. But the numbers that I usually see were like 15 years, 14 years. So I was saying that, thinking that, okay, maybe raising the age from 16 to 18 isn't necessarily the issue. And I think the DA actually just nailed that, because when you pointed out what was going on with that bill, with the raise the age issue, is like there are, things in the legislation itself that are causing people to, go get arrested and be released, and not necessarily that they are, that the age for, that persecution was raised from 16 to 18. And I'm not sure if I'm wrong or right on this. Am I right?
You are correct. And just to add some confusion to this whole thing, it's actually easier for us to prosecute a JO, that is a 14 and 15-year-old, for criminal offenses than it is for us to prosecute an AO for the same criminal offense, because those younger kids, bearing in mind, I mean, again, the basis for us changing these laws was finally a recognition by New York that, the brain development of young men and women, especially young men, is just not there, right? And so, again, I think the basis behind the law was good, but yet, the even younger men and women whose brains haven't developed as much as the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, those 14, 15-year-old JOs, we can prosecute those with greater ease. They're not the 6-day, there's not the raise the age doesn't apply to 14, 15-year-olds, right? So it's an easier paradigm for us to prosecute children than it is for us to prosecute 16, 17, 18-year-old teenagers, right?
So the raise the age might actually be a good idea.
Again, the concept behind it, I applaud, right? Like, New York was one of the last states in the union to figure out how to deal with people under the age of 18 committing crimes. And I'll just tell a quick anecdote, and I know Chairman, you said bottom of the hour. Last year, one of the last cases I handled as a defense attorney was a guy in his mid-30s. When he was 16 years old, under the old system, he was sent to state prison for a gun. 16, went to state prison with adults. He spent 2 years in state prison, and he said, Lee, when I got out of prison, I was sent back to Albany High School. And suddenly I'm sitting in Albany High School with a bunch of kids, and I had just come back from state prison. And he's like, I couldn't handle it. So what did he do? He turned to drugs, and he turned to crime, and he dropped out of school. By the time I represented him, he was probably 33, 34. He was on his 4th felony. He was just like, okay, I'm going back to prison. And that was the cycle that his life had developed into. So raise the age was this idea that suddenly we could break that cycle. And so to see just one life, in fact, I was a defense attorney for 18 years, and so I countless stories like that. But if we can come up with a law to break that cycle, I'm all for it. But clearly where we are, in trying to fix it, we just didn't get it. Right. And you guys are all legislators, and I'm sure in your quiet moments off the record, you might confess to me that maybe you guys did a law that wasn't perfect the first time you passed it, so you went back and tightened the screws on it, and away it went, and it worked a lot better. And that's all really that I'm ever going to ask for when it comes to tweets. So that probably wasn't an answer to your question, I apologize.
Listen, total transparency, I supported Raise the Age. I've seen enough of white, black, and brown kids in jail at 16 years old that had no freaking clue who they were, why they were there, where they were. I've seen that for, 30 years, 30 plus years. I totally agree with the concept. But again, they need to have the people that are in the trenches doing it every day at the table to discuss it. Why is it that in New York we always pass legislation and have to go back and tweak? All I'm saying is breaks, let's get it right the first time and not have to worry about all of the millions that we're spending in hearings and everything else and to try to make a perfect law. I mean, even bail reform, yes, it needed tweaks, discovery, all of this had to happen. I mean, I'll never forget, and I know we're in a quick time frame here, but Danny O'Donnell, Rosie's brother, who was an assembly member out of Manhattan, I brought him up to the jail. We stopped, we talked to a young black male who was in there. I said, hey, what's your name? He got up, he gave us his name. I said, where are you? He told me he was in Schenectady. He said he was from Montgomery County. I said, what are you doing here? He said, I don't really know. So he had a public defender assigned. The kid was going to sit in jail until at some point he went back and they gave him a 60-day sentence for unauthorized use or whatever the case may be. So I understand, it needed to happen, but we just need to slow it down and get it right. And I think, listen, I agree, if those tweaks could happen, which I'd like to be optimistic, but based on some of the other times that we've had meetings up there and promised changes and then shown the door because this is what constituents in the lower part of the state wanted. I just think that's unfair.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions, 3 questions here, and I want to go back on something that Paul had touched on and kind of glanced over. First of all, I think a lot of this has to do with the child's upbringing and their home life. No one has mentioned the type of environment that these kids are being raised in, and I think that's important to understand. I'm sure it's not always pleasant. But Lee, this is a question for you. What is the responsibility of the parent or guardian to keep their minor children under control? So you have a 14-year-old that's going to go out and shoot a flare gun. So are the parents going to suffer any consequences for this, or is there anything we can do at the county level to enact any type of law so that the parents can be punished for the actions of their minor children?
So there is a penal law statute called Endangering the Welfare of a Child. It is very broad and very vague, and it's been challenged for its broadness and vagueness, and it's held tight. And so you can imagine all the different things that adults can do to endanger the welfare of a child. But even with that giant umbrella of a term, I know that it has been tried in Albany County to prosecute parents for endangering the welfare of a child, and that those prosecutions have failed. I'm not saying we can't do it.
Well, then, is there any laws that we can pass at the county level to do that? Because I think we need to keep the parents accountable for the children.
I guess conceptually, I kind of agree with you, and I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possible. But I think probation and DCYFS will say, like, if these kids, maybe this is just my opinion, I don't want to bring people along with me. If these kids are already suffering from a lack of structured home life, a lack of, resources and positive role models, I don't think the idea of me putting that parent in their life in jail for a year is going to help that kid at all. Right? Like, hey kid, here's the one adult in your life. I'm going to put her in jail because she didn't, do X, Y, and Z on your behalf. Then what do I say to the kid? Play that out a little bit. I think that every adult's going to know that I'm not actually going to put him in jail and make this kid homeless. So I think that the programs that DCYFS and probation and the county have set up to provide a positive environment for families to get their act together and to provide, resources and mental health counseling for trauma and all these other things, I think that is a far better solution than prosecuting parents and putting them.
Well, then, do you make it mandatory for the parents to participate in these programs when their children get in trouble?
On July 5th, I told the world that the DA's office is a box of hammers, but not every problem is a nail. I don't think I need to prosecute my way out of our social problems. I don't think that me threatening prosecution of parents.
Well, I'm not saying
is the way
threatening
to go.
prosecution, I'm saying having the parents.
Then it's not my question to answer.
Mandatory for the parents to participate in these programs that the county offers.
It's not my question to answer.
Okay.
So, if the county wants to provide money or housing or services for families, and if the families don't go along with those services, then they don't have access to money, housing, that's not me.
We're providing the services. I think if the child is getting in trouble, I think the parents are gonna have to be forced to do something. And whether it be community service, participate in these programs, whatever. But they need to, something needs to be done about the parents. Then another question, and I don't want to take a lot of time, so another question is, Mike, I'll direct this to you. I think you said that you've been speaking to some federal and state elected officials as well about this, about possibly some legislation. Do you know what or who would sponsor this, or any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't want to throw out names, it's way too preliminary to begin that, but I will say that this is the first time that I've seen a pretty solid, cohesive group from the county level up to the state of everybody realizing that there needs to be a change, there needs to be a tweak, and I'll get back to my original statement when I first sat down. This is not a raise the age problem, which is not to say raise the age doesn't need some improvements. This is a larger issue, and there seems to be momentum that has been built going in that direction.
Okay, all right, and then the last thing is, I know the mayor was very critical of the county in that press conference that she had, but where is her responsibility for cleaning up her own city? Does the city of Albany provide youth programs? Are they out there trying to help the youth in their city as well? She can be critical of us, but it's her house that she has to clean up herself. And I would imagine she should have some programs that the city runs as well, where she can help the youth in her municipality. And the only other thing is, we've been here this evening, we've been here for a while, we've been talking. What are the next steps?
I think we'll get to that.
Okay.
I do want to go ahead. Does anybody else? Joyce?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Just one quick question, and I'm just trying to connect the dots, and I think it was Cameron mentioned, we want to catch these kids before they fall into risk. We're seeing 12, 13, 14-year-olds, pre-raise the age issue, but, and we talked about it, Mike mentioned programs to keep them busy, but we also talked about truancy, and I know it's becoming a real big deal, and I don't know if it falls more on DCYF, but we used to have a program where, and I know it's, I don't like to use the word neglect, but if kids are truant 100 days a year, I think it used to go to DCYF, they would neglect, and through the neglect, through family court, they were able to get the services for the parents. Is that still the mechanism, or is that not the mechanism? I'm trying to figure out where the truancy piece is falling off the rails, I think.
Well, I think we have interventions for the truancy. We have our home run program, we have our preventive services, and it's really identifying what is the barrier of that youth getting to school to participate. We have the pre-pins that we're working in a pilot with the Albany City School District, and I think that has been working well. Like I had indicated, one of the youth who won an award for improving attendance at school through the use of our clinical services as well as having an identified case manager.
One thing, Legislator Joyce, that I think is going to be essential is that these services move up the chain before they are 70 days delinquent. So when we had a truancy program, we were providing services, we weren't even getting cases until the child was 70 or more days delinquent. That, keep in mind, there's a weekend. So that's a lot of weeks. That's months of time in school that they've been truant. We need to move those services further up to allow DCYF to get in and begin dealing with those issues a lot earlier. I think you're referencing educational neglect and charging folks with educational neglect.
But I think it ties to the...
Yeah, so the state also had championed a change in how we would address them, which was much heavier on the services to address the issue. Believe it or not, sometimes the issues are as ridiculous as, oh, I don't have an alarm clock. That actually is something that used to come up on occasion. So that's the direction they went. The DA can speak probably very similar to what he just mentioned about what is the value of pulling a parent out of the home for educational neglect. Maybe there's an extreme case where it may be necessary, but that's why I think the state was pushing us to go in that direction.
And I just want to make sure that the parents, and you mentioned it, the parents and the families need to get those services to help get those kids to school. So if there's a missing piece, I'm sure everybody here would be on board with trying to bridge that.
Yep.
Yes, thanks, Jeff. So, thank you to all of you on the panel who presented today. I know this took a lot of preparation, and we appreciate that. The intent of this joint committee meeting was to enlighten and educate and make sure that the legislature and the public understood kind of what I would describe as a real holistic, county-wide effort that focuses on prevention, intervention, families, youth programs, using, as Cam mentioned, and I think this is worth emphasizing, using programs that are empirically based. So these are programs that have been tested. I love how Maura and also Bill and also the county exec folks emphasize those programs that are those peer-to-peer programs involving young people in the design and the implementation. And we've heard that over and over again, and there's lots of data to support that those are the best programs that do intervene. The other takeaway that I think is really important is that we don't have a lot of sticks. And we need more sort of ways to engage people where they have to participate, because I think that is also something that is lost. One of the other takeaways, I think, is that there does need to be policy tweaks to perhaps raise the age and other, other laws that we're functioning under that clearly have had unintended consequences. And Lee and Craig, it sounds like you guys are miles ahead and have advocated along with the county exec's office. But I think it's really important that law enforcement share their perspectives about how meaningful small changes would be in legislation. And we can certainly lend our voices to that, but that's in your lane and your wheelhouse, and I'm glad that you're in the midst of kind of engagement on that. But I also think that there are some concrete next steps that the county can certainly continue working with the exec on. I do think this issue of truancy is the big one, and if a kid is truant for 70 days, 100 days, and the schools are struggling with that, it takes a lot of school social workers to meet the moment on dealing with truant children, and it takes a lot of hours. I have a family member, and that's her job in a very large school district, and it takes a lot of resources, and those are kids, if they're not going to school, they probably are more prone to behaviors that they wind up in juvenile, the court system, and also doing illegal activity. So I think we'd like to, explore things like that, and I appreciate that you also gave us some other recommendations that we as the legislature can work with county exec and also county leaders on, kind of putting a full frontal force of the county's leadership apparatus, both sides of the aisle, to advocate for stuff. And the sheriff passed out his kind of buyback program that's a little bit more than a buyback, it's a tip line, and appreciate kind of the proactivity of that, and kind of jumping on an opportunity there. Because I also just, a final point, these are really complex problems. Danielle's comments about what effect did COVID have? What effect do these kind of social determinants of health have on this population? Housing issues, joblessness, substance abuse. These are a myriad of complex problems, and we are not going to, there's not a one solution that, oh gee, if the county just spent $10 million on doing X, Y, Z, or if Craig had another $1 million in his budget, we fix the whole thing. That is not the case. These are complex problems, and they need a multifaceted, county-wide approach that involves collaborative work with all of our municipal partners, including the city of Albany. And we will do that work, but I appreciate already the groundwork on kind of how can we join forces and advocate together for some of those things that we see could make a difference as well.
So every school, with the exception of a couple, has an SRO. So maybe there's a way where we can coordinate the SROs to, call in, and we get some people to, check the addresses, and maybe we can push them a little bit harder to get their butts to school.
Yeah, but it's more
Truancy is a
than
big
just
issue.
an SRO. I mean, a lot of it is casework, where you've got to work with the families and figure out, why isn't this kid going to school? What is a bigger problem? I mean, sometimes it's a small thing. Sometimes they're afraid, they're bullied. Sometimes it's, they don't have an alarm clock. Sometimes it's a small thing. Sometimes a kid just doesn't want to go to school, and the parent is not able to force them, which I understand. I don't understand that. I get that from all of you, but that happens too. So I think these are solutions that we have to figure out. How else can the county kind of join forces to make that happen? School districts, with the sheriff, with SROs, with kind of all of it.
Yeah, I'll just say, Mr. Morreale talked about sort of takeaways. I guess really briefly, some of my takeaways from this are that Albany County has a multitude of programs to engage young people. It was a pretty exhaustive list, including young people within the scope of the Raise the Age program. But I think one of one of the things that I want to know is sort of what are our methods to evaluate the effectiveness of those programs and to make sure that, you know, they're doing what we hope they're doing. And I think the sheriff had indicated that he seems to think that perhaps some of the funds that go to those programs could potentially be better spent on, it sounded like more traditional law enforcement.
Well, that's just me speaking.
I understand. Some more traditional law enforcement efforts. So I think the purpose of tonight's meeting is to help the members of the legislature understand from those who are much closer to these issues than we are, start to understand what we can do, what you need from us in terms of policy or funding to address these issues. We're certainly not going to solve it all tonight, but I think it's important that we demonstrate to the people in this community that we recognize it's a problem and that we're all going to be working together, both sides of the aisle, all different instrumentalities of county government and others within the county to try and do something about this. And so I really do appreciate everyone who came out tonight and contributed to the discussion.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you all.
Yeah. That's it?